Champions League. Milan are going to host Cervena Zvezda tomorrow. Juventus host Manchester City. And then you've got Bologna is at Benfica. Okay. The only team that I have any relative certainty that's going to win is going to be Milan. They're going to win at home against Cervena Zvezda. I'm not concerned. I think that Cervena Zvezda is one of the weaker teams. This is 3 points. And listen, Milan fans, I don't give a shit how they win. I just care that they win. Okay. We've got a lot of people on Milan Twitter. There's a bit of an airing of the grievances going on here, Richard. Can you notice that? This is what happens when you don't get together.
I got a lot of problems with a lot of you
people. I just need the Festivus poll. I just, I'll go on Twitter and I'll see Milan fans pissing and moaning about in-game management, about this, about that. And then at the end, the Slovan Bratislava game, there was so much complaining about how they played in that game. And I sat there and I said, they went to Eastern Europe. They got 3 points. All right. That done. Get on to the next one. Okay. Rade Krunic comes back to San Siro. Great, Anthony. He's been so far out of our lives. It's it's just like
Krunic masterclass is coming. I'm telling you.
Yeah. It's one of those that you forgot about him. You forgot about him. You don't give a shit. But then all of a sudden you haven't seen him in a long. It's like a friend or a classmate or somebody like that. You forgot about him. Don't care. But then you randomly run into them and you see that they're doing all right and said, you're kind of not, good to see you're doing well. That's kind of how I feel about Rade Krunic. Good to see you moved on and you found somebody that wants you to play regular football. You had to go to Serbia to do it, but nonetheless. So anyhow, the Juve Manchester City game. Okay, so Manchester City's decimated, but they're starting to get everybody back. And that's, they don't have Rodri, and I think that's still a big, big problem for Manchester City when you watch them play. But they have Kevin De Bruyne back who can dictate things through the lines. And you've obviously got Erling Haaland, which you got to watch out for. I see this as a Man City team that, Pep's going to probably start managing with a chip on his shoulder because everything's up against him. We've got Thiago Motta, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit, who's just wildly inconsistent, so far in his time at Juve. They still don't. I still don't think they have a striker. Is Vlahovic back? I don't think is. But they played Milan without a striker. Let's see here. I can't believe I don't know this. I thought I saw him, but
he played against Bologna.
What's that? Yeah, he played against Bologna. So he's back. All right, so Vlahovic is back. But do you have any faith that this Juventus team under Thiago Motta is going to get a result against Manchester City? I don't. Not even this Manchester City.
It's funny because I think this Juventus team is more consistent in Europe than they are domestically. And I don't know if that's because Thiago Motta is overthinking it in Serie A or what. Now, can they get a result, meaning can they get a draw? Yes, I think they can. But it really depends on what kind of mood Man City is in, what kind of setup Thiago Motta has his men in. They have the talent that can compete with Man City. The question is, what team will we see from Juventus? What kind of style will we see from Thiago Motta's men? They got to find a way to gain more possession of this game because you give Man City the possession of the world, they're going to eventually break you down and take you apart. So Juventus got to be smart about this. Look at some of the big games they had recently in Serie A and even the game against Leipzig recently, and try to balance all that. It's at home. I think they can get a draw. I don't know if Man City is there yet. Not that Juventus is. They got to do a better result than what they did against Bologna. So I'm gonna say Juventus get a point in this one.
Probable lineups show Juve going Di Gregorio, Savona, Gatti, Kalulu, Danilo, and then you've got Locatelli and Thuram. And Thuram has started to come on and play pretty well lately. In the holding midfield, you've got Koop Miners, and then you've got Conceição and Yildiz on the flanks with Vlahovic up front. Against Ederson, Walker, Diaz, Akanji, Vardiol, and then Bernardo Silva, Ilkay, and Kevin De Bruyne, and then Grealish, Haaland, and Jeremy Doku. If Juve line up like this against Man City, against this Man City, uh, to me, this is disaster waiting to happen for Juventus. I mean, you're going to start two wingers and an attacking midfielder and a striker that are going to have to chase all over the place. I mean, he'd be. I would say the suggestion I would have would be. I would probably, you know what I mean, and I think this might be out of necessity because Weston McKennie's doubtful. There's really not much else, in your midfield. But I would start three midfielders, and close that up, and then, yeah, maybe take your chances, or maybe Koopmeiners drops in and they ask him to do some defending, and then take your chances with Conceição, Yildiz, and Vlahovic providing the attack on the counter. If they go with 4-3-3 in this setup with Thiago Motta, I see problems. I think Man City exploits it and comes away with a couple of goals.
Who does Juve have this weekend? I asked because we just talked about how he looked to the weekend and didn't want to put all his players against Liverpool.
They host Venezia.
So in a way, it's a throwaway game for the weekend. So why not put your guys out there? I think put some of your horses out there. Put Yildiz out there. Maybe put get some pace out there with Vlahovic. They need to attack Man City with possession, with pace, and hope Yildiz and Vlahovic are in the scoring mood, and I think they can be.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do. You cannot sit back against Man City. You have to attack them. Juve seems when they play these bigger teams, big teams, I should say not bigger teams, big teams, and they attack them, it's a good result. It's when they sit back and let the other team try to dictate, it becomes a nightmare. So yeah, I think they can get a point, but it's play with fire, like you said. Yep. This is a dangerous team. If any of that players going to move, it's a very big risk. But sometimes to get a big reward, you got to take a big risk.
But then at the same time, when you take a look at it, Manchester City's away form is absolutely wretched.
You got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some losses there. Obviously, like Liverpool, they got battered by Sporting, and this was like the last great game that Sporting played before Amorim left and went to Manchester United. They lost again today. I think Amorim left and Sporting just forgot how to win. You might be able to take advantage of that. Manchester, they struggled at Crystal Palace even at the weekend, and I think they had a player, it was Rico Lewis, who got sent off. So, but anyway, I want to look at Juve's lineup and say, man, City will have a ton of gaps to be able to exploit and go right at that and make it extremely difficult. But at the same time, they're also crap on the road. So this game, I mean, it could really go either way. I still think that City win, but who knows? And then has to travel to Benfica. This is a weird game to me. Bologna has not performed particularly well. Obviously, they're sitting fourth from bottom. They only have 1 point, from their 5 games. But when you look at their games, they're not completely out of their depth. They've, how do I say this? They've been in games. They have had chances to rescue points, and I think one other game has a chance. Had a chance to win, and it escapes me. I think it was the Shakhtar game where they had their chances to win and didn't take advantage of it. So they've been competitive. And they're starting to get better in Serie A, which Vincent points out. And I was starting to see them work their way back up the table. So it might have been one of those things where, okay, Italiano is changing things around with how Bologna are going to play. He's definitely different from how Thiago Motta did things. And there's an adaptation period whenever you have that kind of change. And now you go against the Benfica team that loves to have possession of the ball. You've got, Angel Di Maria, who's like 60 years old and still creating and producing and crossing. You get Kokchu in the midfield. Artukoglu is another talented player, Turkey international. They've got some good players here. I think it's going to be a challenge for them. I just think that this is going to be another one where they battle. It's close, but I think that in the end, Benfica just have a little too much talent for them. I hope I'm wrong for Bologna fans' sake, but that's just how I see that one going.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's going well for Bologna at the moment, obviously, they had a favorable result over the weekend. They've been playing a lot better lately, like you said, under Vincenzo Italiano. They've looked more composed. They look more. The defense has played a lot better. They're scoring goals now, so they could give Benfica a run for their money. Benfica could be overlooking them. As you said, where they Bologna sit in the table currently, it's not ideal for them. They look like they're going to be right, bounce out of this competition. And if Benfica just overlooks this, and who knows who they play on the weekend, it could be perfect timing for Bologna to kind of get in there, get stuck in the muck there, and get out of there with a draw. And that
They've
would be
got Fiorentina, so and right now, given their
who does
position in the
Benfica have this
table,
weekend?
what's that?
Who does Benfica have this weekend?
Something called AVS.
AVS.
Yeah,
Adult. Never mind. Never mind.
you're dirty. This is supposed to be for children, Richard.
Is it? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, at least that's what I thought.
Traumatizing kids.
Yeah, a whole bunch of kids are going to go ask their mom questions now.
Yeah.
So look what you've done. Just poisoning more minds out there, Richard.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah, I could see Bologna punting this. I mean, given their position in the table, and given that they're trying to work their way back and fight their way back, I think that this could be a punt game for them. Focus on trying to beat Fiorentina here at the weekend, who's been on a roll. I mean, it's time to start thinking about those things. What are your prospects really? You've played 5, you have 1 point. This is pretty much how we thought it was going to go for Bologna. Unfortunately, you're 6 points out of the playoff places, and I'd say it's time to cut bait. Have some different people get a chance to play against Benfica and enjoy the atmosphere, and then get ready for Fiorentina. Keep working your way back up the table. So, 2-0 makes a lot of sense, Anthony. That's not a bad scoreline. So, let's get back to domestically Serie A, Richard. We want to begin with managers and performance. I mean, we're going to gloss about Atalanta. We're going to talk about Fiorentina. We're going to get to them here shortly, guys. But some managerial performances that are certainly generating questions. All right, this Juventus sitting 6th in the table on 27 points, but if you look at some Juventus fans, they're not particularly satisfied. You're hearing some Allegri would have done this, Allegri would have done that. We'd have more points, we'd have more wins. Well, through 15 games, you have 24 goals. You've only conceded 10, so the defending is still there. And I think that Juventus is rolling exactly the way we thought they would under Thiago Motta. He took his tactics that he did at Bologna, and now he's doing them at Juventus. I don't have a problem with the performance so far. You have to take into account that he had to go through a couple of games without a striker. That's not easy to do, especially when you have a team full of guys that are not used to playing with a false 9. You've got some young players that are starting to find their footing in Serie A. We've talked about this with young players. It takes them a while. It sometimes takes them an entire season, CDK. Milan weren't patient with that. It's very rare to have a young player just come in and make just an immediate splash. Varatelia. So, yeah, he's not bad. So I look at Kenan Yildiz and I look at Conceição and I look at two guys that are starting to adapt well. I think that they're going to be good playmakers in the wide areas. They are going to take pressure off of the midfielders. And they are guys they can go at defenders. But the other thing that they can do, Richard, they can make direct runs off of Vlahovic. That's in their locker as well. And they're both capable finishers. So my opinion about Thiago Motta, it hasn't been great so far. I think Juve fans were maybe expecting to be up the table a little bit, especially with some of the signings that they did in the summer and some of the money that got spent. But all in all, I don't think it's time to push the panic button with Juve. I think that this is one of those, to me, that gets better as it goes on.
Yeah, you hope so. And one person you want to help that will help that is Toon Koopminers. He is potentially our captain of the Crap on the Cracker team, but I digress. That's next month. Yeah, I think. Well, let's back it up a little bit here. What do we say? What did I say on the preview podcast about Thiago Motta? I didn't trust that he was the second coming of Guardiola. That he was going to be very much Allegri 3.0 with some nuances, more possession. And this is not surprising to me at all. If anybody listened to me months ago, this is exactly what I told you was going to happen. And all you and Tina were like, no, you're crazy. This guy is an attacking genius, this and that. I'm like, I love Thiago Motta, but it takes time with this. And I agree with you. I think this will get better as it goes. Obviously, with Coop Miners, when he starts playing well, the whole team, the midfield is really going to start dominating. Obviously, they have some special players on the wings, as you mentioned. Vlahovic has still got the scoring touch. That central midfield has some questions there, but even some young wingbacks that are talented as well. It just takes time with what they want to do. It's very much an Allegri type team minus the discipline defensively, where Allegri would, he wouldn't give a 1-0 lead or 2-0 lead. You will see that with Juventus. But no, it's not time to panic. The thing is, you have to lower your expectations, because if you're going into this thinking you're going to be Pep Guardiola or Conte and just going to win the league outright, like, no, he's not that kind of manager. It's not that kind of team. It's going to take time, and what he wants to do stylistically, formation-wise, it's going to take some time to adapt for all these players who hadn't played like this before. And so after several months, they'll eventually start to get it. And you see that at times they look brilliant offensively, and other times they look like they don't know what to do. Same thing defensively. Not time to push the panic button, but you have to kind of reset expectations, I think. And if you're looking at Scudetto from the beginning of the season, I think that's where you're looking at it wrong. I think if you're looking top four, that's more of a realistic outcome if you want to get with this, because you have some overperforming teams this year, but you're still within 4 points of the top four. So don't panic just yet. Keep trusting in Thiago Motta. Take these results for what they are right now. As long as you don't lose the games, eventually it'll turn around. I do have faith that Thiago Motta will find a way to get this team to start cooking consistently. That's the thing. They haven't been consistent. And I think with time, they will be consistent with Thiago Motta.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up the I think I had a possession. There we go, possession. Okay, so let's look at this. Juventus are second in Serie in possession at 60.1.
Makes sense.
Max, you ever see Max Allegri possess the ball?
Nope.
60% of the time in a game ever? No.
That's one of the big differences there between the two managers is possession.
Yeah. So it's a striking contrast in styles that I think they've taken to quite well. I think that some of the time that they'll win it on talent. But like I said, I think that this is something that just gets better as it goes on, in my opinion. It's surprising to me that Inter is sitting at 60.4. They've had the most possession of any team in Serie A this season. So you've seen a little bit of a shift there. That's a little bit of a shift for Simone Inzaghi. You generally don't see that. From an Inzaghi managed Inter, they've been very good on the counter through the years under him, and maybe more of a maybe more in the sub 50 range. I'll give you the top five right now. Inter at 60.4, Juve at 60.1, Roma at 57.7. That's surprising. Bologna at 56.9, which is not necessarily surprising. The holdovers from Motta plus Italiano is very possession-based as well. And then Como at 56. Fabregas wants his guys to have the ball. So, and then after that, it's Atalanta, Lazio, and Milan, and then Fiorentina. So, and I think the correlation here is Serie A might be shifting to being, you better be possession based and you better have the ball, because having the ball is going to create the chances. Having the counterattacking in your locker like Inter has, like Atalanta can be capable of doing from time to time. I'd throw Milan in that mix with when you can get Leao out in space and with some of the things that Pulisic has done this season. Those elements are still helpful, but you're seeing that possession is bringing chances, bringing goals, bringing points. So, and that's kind of the trend that we're finding. Even Napoli is a hair over 50, which
Yeah.
is middle of the table, but that might even be high for Antonio Conte type managed teams. So.
And I think if you're a Juventini, what you have to look at is who are the teams in front of you, right? Atalanta, Napoli, Inter, those teams are playing really well. And so are Fiorentina and Lazio, but it's Fiorentina and Lazio. No disrespect to those clubs, but if you're a Juventus fan, you can say, like, you know what? We can catch those teams, and it's not that big. If it's 4 point gap, it's you play these teams again head to head, you can get a result. Lazio and Fiorentina are playing well at the moment. Lazio has gotten some nice wins over big teams recently, but you're within range. It's not like a 10 point gap. You don't have Milan in the picture. You don't have Roma in the picture. There's some other teams that are not in this picture that you probably could be worried about historically. So you're within reach. You don't think Scudetto, think top four. That's what you got to think about. It's the first year of Thiago Motta's project. Like, relax.
And they're keeping the ball in the middle third of the pitch, which is what Motta did a lot at Bologna. Juventus leads Serie A in middle third touches per 90. Inter follow just after that. This makes a ton of sense. Want to take a guess who